We are Port Life Church. Our vision is to bring life to the Port community and beyond. We do this by knowing, loving and serving our God, our church, our college, our community and our world.
And welcome to Port Life. You may take a seat. It is so good to see you here this morning. Welcome back to 2021, first time back here in our church. We want to say an extra special welcome to all our visitors here this morning. I saw a few of you as I was on check-in this morning, and it's just so good to see new faces, and we welcome you here to our church family. And we encourage you to stay around after the service. You can have a free drink on us, a coffee if you're so inclined in this hot weather. I can't think of anything worse. Who's still drinking coffee this morning, by the way? Oh my gosh, don't understand this. My preference would be a cold beverage, and they are also on offer. We have Cokes, we have milkshakes. So if you are new here today, you get a free drink on us. And we'd love you to stay around so we can get to know you a little bit better and so you can get to know us. It is still holidays for many of our staff, so most of our staff are actually on holiday. So if you've tried to contact any of them and got no response, that's because they're away. But Josh and I are still in, and Sarah is floating around for part of the week as well. So if you want to come and see one of us or talk to one of us, perhaps just give us a call first just to make sure we're in the office, and that's the case for the next week. And then from the week after, everybody is back. All of our programs are on recess as well, but they'll be starting back at the start of term 1, so keep an eye out for those. 31st of January is a really important date in the life of our church this year. That is our Vision Sunday. Can I really encourage you to make it a priority to be here that particular Sunday? I mean, it's good to be here every Sunday, but that's a really special one because that's where we talk about our vision for the year. And this is where we announce any new and exciting things that are coming up for this year. And I know what some of those things are, and they are exciting. So make sure you are here for Vision Sunday on the 31st. Just a practical thing, I run the check-in, and so I'm just going to say this because I think I had about 20 people ask me this morning. We do have to check in twice. I know it seems really frustrating to have to do the QR code plus check in with us, but the QR code information only goes straight to the South Australian Government. We don't get that information, and we have to keep track of how many people are in each room because we have to make sure we're meeting the 1 person per 2 square metre rule. So I'm really sorry, but if you can make sure when you come into church each week, if you check in with the QR code, or if you don't want to do that, fill in the form, plus come to one of us and sign in with us as well. So that just helps make sure that we can meet all our requirements. Finally, I want to say thank you so much to those of you who've continued to give, who gave all through a very difficult year last year and have continued to give this year as well. We do our giving now online, and if you want those details, they'll be up on the screen. Or if you still prefer to give cash, we have 2 mailboxes. They're at the back 2 doors, and with an envelope, and you can put money in that way. And we just, again, want to thank those of you who do give in to the life of this church to make it possible for us to bring life to the Port community and beyond. That's all from me. I'm now going to introduce my gorgeous husband, Pastor Josh Poyser. Let's give him a round of applause.
Good morning. It's good to be back. I want to thank Michael Wilson. Hasn't he done a good job of the stage here? He spent the last week slaving away here, and then his wife came and cleaned up his mess. I thought that was really, really good. So, teamwork. Is there any 80s movies fans in the house? Only a couple? Princess, never heard of it. My top 3 favourite movies all come from the 80s. Number 1, Indiana Jones movies. Who likes them? They were really, really good. All the young people go, who's that? Number 2, The Goonies. Any Goonies fans? Oh, look, yes, we've got a few here. Again, it's our age. And my favourite movie series of all time, see if you can work out what this one is. You kids in the front, you know this? You know it? It's good? They like it. That's good, see? We're still relevant. I probably deserve that. Can we... That doesn't look stable at all. Why do you reckon I like these movies? I mean, I thought they were really well done. I actually thought they were really well acted. But for me, the big thing with these movies is that it's all about adventures. And I personally love adventures. You know, I love going on personal adventures myself. I like going out and exploring new worlds. I love going out to the country. And when I'm there, I just love looking at all the little towns, and then you go out on this dirt road somewhere and you see this old settler's cottage that's abandoned, and it's those old stone huts, and I just like to look at it and I sort of think, I wonder what it would have been like living there in 1830, 1840, 1850, whenever it was, when it was someone's house, when there was no road there. I just wonder what that would have been like. I love doing that. I also love exploring and in the city. Like last year, 2020, I was fortunate enough to go to Brisbane. We picked the right month to go anyway, and we went, and we were staying one night in a hotel in the city, and the next morning I needed coffee, even though, it's also hot there. But I went exploring just through these back alleys looking for a coffee shop until I stumbled across one, and the coffee was awesome, and then I had to try and explore to work my way back to the hotel because I'd forgotten where I was. But to me, that sort of stuff is awesome fun. Then I go to Myanmar, and I'll just go for a couple of hours and wander down dirt roads, which is probably not the smartest thing to do, but I love just talking to locals as much as I can and just seeing how life works when you're not at a hotel in those sort of countries. I love those sort of adventures. But there's one adventure that does not excite me. And it's one we're going to be looking at this morning. Although it doesn't excite me, it's still an important one, and this is the Israelites' adventure. Now, the Israelites were a group of millions of people. They were enslaved by the Egyptians. And if you go back and look in the Bible of Exodus, you can read what happens. There's a series of plagues that take place. And as a result of these plagues, eventually they are allowed to go, and then they're sort of told, no, you can't go. And then in the end, anyway, they escape. I'm not going to go into the detail of that. That's not really relevant today. But after running away, the Israelites sort of know where they're going, and they sort of don't. Like, they know that they're meant to go to Canaan, which is the promised land. So they know they're off on this adventure, but because of their unbelief and a few things that happen, they never end up making it. They just don't end it. For 40 years, they're just wandering throughout the desert. And I'm sure for those of you that have been in church a long time and have read your Bible, you know this story really well. But basically, this group of people, they really lack purpose. And it sounds to me like torture. They're wandering, and because they're wandering, it means they're vulnerable. And in the book of Numbers, believe it or not, that's a book in the Bible. For those of you not familiar with it, there's a book called Numbers, and in chapter 21, we read that they get attacked by the Canaanites as they're on their wanderings. And the Canaanites take some of them prisoner. Now, if you haven't ever looked into the Canaanites, this is a really nasty group of people. They were a very godless group. They were really heavy into idol worship. And when I say heavy, so heavy that they really felt that each year you should sacrifice children to the idols. That's how serious these people were about their beliefs. And finally, so now what's happened is the Israelites have stumbled across these Canaanites, and they know how bad these people are. And so they finally get the courage to trust God. And they say, God, if you will help us, if you will come to our aid, we will destroy these Canaanites and all their evil practices. We will help put this thing to bed. And God listened. And if you read the story, and he gave them victory. And a little bit later, if you keep reading in Numbers 21, they come across another group called the Amorites. And they send an ambassador to the king saying, look, just let us travel through your land. Please, just let us pass. We don't want any trouble. We just want to pass. We won't touch any of your resources. Just let us travel through. Well, no. What actually happened is that the king refuses the request and instead gets his entire army to try and destroy the Israelites. Well, of course, that wasn't in God's plan. And so if you read the story, the Amorites get absolutely annihilated by the Israelites. The same thing then happens to King Og of Bashan and his people. And so the Israelites have now got a bit of a spring in their step. You know, they've had a lot of years of losses where they've just been going nowhere. But all of a sudden, they're having some wins. And now they've finally got a bit of faith. They've got a bit of a sense of achievement. And most importantly, they believe that God is on their side. And a little bit later, they travelled to the plains of Moab, which is not far from the city of Jericho. And they've achieved a lot. You know, they've just taken on all these armies and they've defeated them all. And the word has got around. It's been all over Instagram. The Bible says that the Moabite king Balak had seen what the Israelites did to the Amorites. And when he saw how many of them there were, he freaked out. Let's have a look. We're going to start today from Numbers chapter 22. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. You might have a different translation you prefer. I'm totally fine with that. It does not bother me. But starting from verse 4, it says, you can read it on here if you haven't got access to one today. The king of Moab said to the elders of Midian, "This mob will devour everything in sight, like an ox devours grass in the field." So Balak, king of Moab, sent messengers to call Balaam, son of Beor. For those of you that are fairly new to the church scene, let me introduce Balaam to you. So Balaam was this prophet. So a prophet's someone that thinks that they can tell things about what's going to happen in the future. And so he lived in Mesopotamia, which we would today call Iraq. And he made these prophecies that are recorded in Scripture. He prophesied the Star of Bethlehem. So sometimes he got things really, really right. But like all of us, this guy's got some issues. Sometimes he'd prophesy on behalf of God, but sometimes he'd speak demonic curses on people. It was all about whether or not you would pay him enough money. So if you had enough money, he would curse someone for you or he'd bless someone for you. It was all about if the price was right. And it worked because he had power. So he was this he was like a modern day celebrity. You know, he's like the Bieber or the Kardashian of 1300 BC. You know, everybody knows this guy. They've heard of this person. He's a diviner. He'd read signs and omens and he'd be able to determine the future for people. And he performed all these rituals and he would be able to determine, I can tell you what's going to happen in this future event. He was internationally recognised for his ability to bless and curse other people. So that's really important. Now we get back to our story. In verse 4 it says, the king of Moab said to the elders of Midian, "This mob will devour everything in sight, like an ox devours grass in the field." So Balak sent to call for this guy, Balaam. So Balaam gets this message in verse 5 and 6. "Look, a vast horde of people have arrived from Egypt. They cover the face of the earth and are threatening me. Please come and curse these people for me because they are too powerful for me. Then perhaps I'll be able to conquer them and drive them from the land. I know that blessings fall on people you bless and curses fall on people you curse." So the messengers offer Balaam money if he'll curse the Israelites. They knew him well. Now I want you to pretend this morning that you are Balaam and Prime Minister ScoMo, his official, calls you and he says, "Look, the Chinese are invading. And I need to tell you, Prime Minister, our military is no match." "Well, have you told them we're not blaming them for COVID?" "Yes, but they don't believe us. Only you can save us because you have access to God and you have access to his power." And you think, well, actually, that's true. Imagine if I did save Australia. I think I'd be some sort of a national hero. You know, forget Chris Hemsworth. Forget Hugh Jackman. Forget Nick Johnson. I'll be even greater. The whole nation will praise me, Balaam. I'll have a public holiday. You know, May Day can become Bay Day. Everyone will look at me. Everyone will love me. Everyone will pay me. The messengers give him the request. And he responds in verse 8 with this: "Stay here overnight. In the morning, I'll tell you whatever the Lord directs me to say." So Balaam tells them that he's going to go and ask God what he wants him to do. In verse 9 it says, that night God came to Balaam. Notice it doesn't say, that night Balaam went to God and asked him. Balaam never asked him. He said, I'll go and ask God. He didn't ask God, so God had to come to him. God's response, do not go with them. You are not to curse these people, for they have been blessed. The next morning, Balaam tells Balak's messengers, go on home. The Lord will not let me go of you. Do you reckon that's how he said it? No. He would have said, go on home. The Lord won't let me go of you. I'm really going to miss out. I'm wrecking your floor, aren't I, Michael? He's looking at he's looking at the floor. He's just lost the chance of a lifetime. You know, he's just missed this great opportunity. He's feeling regret, even though he was doing what was right and obedient. And you know what? If you feel regret, it's not long before temptation's going to come. And it did. King Balak, he knew Balaam really well, and so he knew this guy loves to feel loved, he loves to feel powerful, he loves to feel important, and so this time he sends more people to Balaam. And he made sure that this time they were even more important people. So he's just trying to feed this ego that Balaam has, you know, that you are the greatest. And even though God clearly said to Balaam, no, you are not going on this adventure, you are not going to go and do this, Balaam really wanted it. He did not want to miss out. And so rather than just accept what God wanted him to do, he starts pestering God. He should just say, look, I'm sorry, I can't go. That's my answer. But at the back of his mind, he's probably thinking something like, you know, Australian of the Year goes to Balaam. He says to the officials of Balak, I would be powerless to do anything against the will of the Lord my God, but just stay here one more night and I'll see if the Lord has anything else to say. There are some parents here in the room. Have you ever said no to your kid, but they keep on asking? Or is that just me? Dad, can I wear this jumper? No, it's boiling outside. This is pretty much a true story, by the way. Nearly daily. Dad, can I wear this jumper? I said no. Dad, I really want to wear this jumper. No, but I'm freezing. Yes, well, that's because I've called the house. But we're about to leave the house, and I have had very little success in cooling the Earth's atmosphere. So, Dad, can I wear this jumper? No. It's bad parenting, I know. Probably shouldn't even respond, but God had already told Balaam that these people are blessed. You are not to touch these people. But that's not what Balaam wants. And the thing with God is, if you keep pestering, he'll let you do what you want to do. He'll try to warn you not to, but he's not going to stop you. He's not going to make you a robot. He lets you make life decisions. It's part of the adventure, I guess. And so Balaam chose to consult God for this decision, but he didn't like God's advice, and so he just kept going, hoping that God might change his mind. And in the end, God didn't change his mind, but he let Balaam go. And so Balaam decides he's going to go. In verse 21 it says, so the next morning, Balaam got up, saddled his donkey, and started off with the Moabite officials. But God was angry that Balaam was going. So he sent the angel of the Lord to stand in the road to block his way. As Balaam and two servants were riding along, Balaam's donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. The donkey bolted. It bolted off the road into a field, but Balaam beat it and turned it back onto the road. So what we have here is God trying to get this guy's attention. Balaam doesn't sit there and think, why did my donkey just bolt? Should have been something to have him wonder. He just thinks it's being disobedient, so he decides, well, I'll teach it a lesson, I'll beat it up. This all says something about Balaam. Proverbs 12:10 says the godly care for their animals, but the wicked are always cruel. Numbers 22:24, as we go on, it says, "And the angel of the Lord stood at a place where the road narrowed between two vineyard walls. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing there, it tried to squeeze by and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. So Balaam beat the donkey again." Now we need to remember that God did not want this guy going in the first place. And this guy is world famous for reading signs and omens. And this guy also knows his donkey. And his donkey is behaving strangely. And yet this diviner can't actually see what's going on. He can't see what's going on because he's spiritually blind. He's way too selfish to consider others. You know, he's got these very important officials travelling with him. He's on his way to save a nation. He is great. He is wonderful. But he's also worried. And he's worried, like, what are these people going to think of me? Like, I've got this donkey. And how am I going to instill confidence into them if I can't even control a donkey? Because I'm sure most of you probably know this. Donkey control is not meant to be difficult. You know, it's meant to be difficult probably to control a tiger or a camel or an elephant or a crocodile, but it's not meant to be difficult to control a donkey. In verse 26 it says, "Then the angel of the Lord moved farther down the road and stood in a place too narrow for the donkey to get by at all. This time, when the donkey saw the angel, it lay down under Balaam. In a fit of rage, Balaam beat the animal again with his staff." You know, this donkey is clearly smarter and wiser than Balaam. So in Proverbs 22 it says, "The wise see danger ahead and avoid it, but fools keep going and get into trouble." And Balaam is a fool. Then the Lord gave the donkey the ability to speak. The donkey says, "What have I done to you that deserves your beating me 3 times?" it asked Balaam. Verse 29 says, "You've made me look like a fool," Balaam shouted. "If I had a sword with me, I'd kill you." This is one of the most remarkable verses in the whole Bible. I mean, who here has some form of a pet? I assume a fair few of you. You know, I have a cat called Raph that I love. Love cats. If Raph saw his food and said to me, "Have you got anything other than whiskers?" do you reckon I'm going to respond with, "Look, I'm sorry, that's all I could get at the shop. I mean, I looked, but this is on special. Just eat it, please, or you're not going to get your dessert." That's what Balaam did. If my cat spoke to me, I would freak out and amaze. I would love that cat. I would be seeing dollar signs. I mean, I'd be getting my phone out and I'd be going, "Can you just say that again?" But Balaam's talking to this donkey as though they always chat to each other. And obviously, this is a miracle. This is an act of God. This is God trying to say something to Balaam. He's trying to talk to him. But remember, he's spiritually blind. He can't see what's going on. So he's just back in conversation with a donkey, as you do. "But I'm the same donkey you've ridden all your life," the donkey answered. The donkey's saying, "Why are you so stupid? Have I ever done anything like this before?" "No," Balaam admitted. As this conversation goes on, Balaam is still not aware that this is a supernatural event that's happening around him. He is way too focused on the adventure and what he wants to do, because he wants to go and be a hero. And a talking donkey was not enough for God to get his attention. You know, he's meant to be this seer that can see and read things and understand what's going to happen in the future. But this guy is not spiritually aware at all. The donkey is far more spiritually aware of him. You know, a donkey may be dumb, but Balaam is dumber. It says in verse 31, "Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the roadway with a drawn sword in his hand." And at this point, Balaam bowed his head and he fell face down on the ground before him. "Why did you beat your donkey those 3 times?" the angel of the Lord demanded. "Look, I've come to block your way because you are stubbornly," and this is the key part of my message today, "you are stubbornly resisting me." Balaam, in summary, Balaam is resisting God. Do you know what resist means? It means oppose. Balaam was opposing God. He's basically doing the opposite to what God wanted him to do. So what's the relevance of this story today to us? I'm sure none of you have talking animals. You might have talking parrots. But have you ever asked God, "What do you want me to do, God, in this situation?" But then you haven't really liked what God said. So like Balaam, you ask God again, hoping you might get a different answer. But you know deep in your heart, he hasn't changed his mind, and he's not going to change his mind. But you resist him, and you just go and do the opposite anyway. And you do what God said not to do. Things like, "God, should I marry this person?" "No, you should definitely not marry this person." "Yeah, I've got this feeling, I'm a bit nervous about marrying. I don't know if I should do this." "Oh, I'll marry them anyway." "God, should I go and forgive this person?" "Yes, you should." "Yeah, I'll do it later." "God, should I go and talk to that person?" "Yeah, you should go and talk to that person." "I don't have time at the moment." "God, should I buy that business?" "No, you should definitely not buy that business." I'm sure it's a good deal. I'm sure I misunderstood him. I'll do it anyway." "Lord, should I wait for that thing that I really, really want?" "Yes, you need to wait." But I want it now." I'm just gonna get it." "Lord, should I go into ministry?" "Yeah, you should go into ministry." "All right, I'll do it after I've finished this other career over here." "Lord, should I go into ministry?" "No, you should not go into ministry. You should stay in your job." "I'm going to quit my job, and in faith I'm going to believe that God's going to change his mind." When I do the opposite of what God is telling me to do, I start to understand why he is God and why I am not. Because over time, it can all start to unravel, and it can become a big mess, and we start to regret not doing what God had said. You know, Proverbs 22:3 again says, "The wise see danger ahead and avoid it, but fools keep going and get into trouble." So as we get into 2021, we're all going to have to make some serious decisions at some point this year, I believe. They might be small to the world, but in your own personal life, you'll be making decisions that could be quite significant. And my point is this today. Before you make that decision, I want to encourage you to do 2 things. Number 1, like Balaam, ask God. Although originally he didn't even ask God. So maybe not even like Balaam, although he eventually did, but ask God. But number 2, what Balaam never did, obey God. If we only do number 1, we're just going to be fools. Well, I find it hard to hear from God. You know, I don't seem to get God saying to me yes or no, but sometimes we've got to be looking for what God's saying. You see, God can put things in your way like a donkey. The purpose of the donkey was God trying to talk to this guy. It was a sign. He was giving him a sign that something wasn't right. You should stop going ahead. This is not normal behavior for your donkey. I'm trying to tell you something. You're not going to have a donkey experience, but you're going to have some sort of an experience. Something is going to say to you, maybe this is not right. Maybe I should not proceed. It probably won't be a donkey. You know what it'll be? It'll be probably someone else from the church will come and say to you, I don't know if that's right. I'm not sure you should do that. We should make sure that we surround ourselves with people that can speak into our life like that and tell us what is right, not what we want to hear. It's so important. And if you don't have people, God speaks to us other ways as well. You will know in your spirit if something is right, if it's a yes from God, and you'll know at times when something is a no from God. If it's a yes, you'll get this great peace. If it's a no, you'll feel sick as you're trying to make this decision. We can also hear from God, believe it or not, just by reading. And that's why we have the Bible. Psalm 119, 105 lays it all out for us. It says, your word is a lamp to guide my feet. As I go on the adventure of life, if I want to know which direction I should be heading, all I need to do is start reading God's word, and it helps steer us on the direction we should be going. It is a light for the path that we are to take. You might say, but the Bible's this thick. It's 1,600 pages. It would take me a year to read that. The amazing thing about the Bible is, when you read the Bible, if you do it and you ask God to help you as you read this thing, God will help. It's amazing how often God will have you opening up to a page where you needed to read. There's a big Bible, but God is powerful enough to actually have you opening up the page that you need to be hearing from. It truly does happen. He will give you something for you today. We're all on an adventure, and as we read the Bible, we get these directions, and we get advice about some of the obstacles that are going to be in this adventure. Balaam asked, but he wouldn't obey. And my challenge to us all, me included today, is in 2021, let's be people that don't just ask God, but also obey God with what he tells us. God bless. I'm going to hand over now to the music team.